In the silence before civilization, when the earth was still untamed and humanity was but a whisper on the wind, there was darkness. A darkness so absolute that the night itself seemed endless, swallowing sound and sight alike. But within that endless night, something extraordinary happened. A flicker, a spark, a moment when humankind met the element that would change the course of existence forever: fire. It was more than light, more than heat. It was the beginning of everything, of survival, of society, of story. Hello and welcome to The Other Side Stories. Here, we travel beyond the usual headlines to explore the untold tales of world history, mysteries, turning points, and hidden connections that shaped our planet. If you love discovering how the past still echoes in our present, you're in the right place. Let's uncover the other side of history together. Long before cities rose and kingdoms fell, before language took form or tools were refined, early humans wandered a hostile world. Predators on every side, freezing winds, and endless hunger. Life was a constant struggle between instinct and extinction. But then, one day, somewhere on this vast planet, our ancestors encountered fire. Maybe it was lightning striking a tree or a spark from rubbing stones. No one can say for certain when that first encounter took place. Yet what we do know is that in that moment, everything changed. Imagine the awe and terror they must have felt, the crackling of wood, the dancing glow that lit up the cave walls. It was alive, untouchable, beautiful, and dangerous. To tame it was an act of courage and genius. At first, they would have simply watched from afar, learning its nature. Fire burned, it consumed, it frightened predators, but could turn on those who mishandled it. Slowly, over countless generations, humans began to understand it. They learned to keep embers alive through the night, to feed it with dry branches, to protect it from the wind. Fire became a companion, a guardian in the dark. Archaeologists have uncovered some of the oldest traces of controlled fire at sites like Wonderwork Cave in South Africa, dating back nearly 1 million years. Deep within the earth, layers of ash and burned bones tell a story, not of accident, but intention. Someone tended that fire, watched it, nurtured it, and in doing so, they began the long path toward civilization. Fire offered light where there was none. It extended the day, allowing people to gather, to see, to share. Around the fire, stories were born, the first myths, the first lessons, passed down not through genes, but through words. The flames were the world's first classroom, and the night became humanity's first stage. But the gift of fire was not only spiritual, it was practical, revolutionary even. It meant warmth in freezing climates, protection from beasts, and the power to cook. Cooked food changed human biology itself. Raw meat, roots, and plants required immense energy to digest. Cooking broke down tough fibers, released nutrients, and shortened digestion. That meant humans could spend less time chewing, more time thinking, creating, planning. Some scientists even argue that cooking made us human, that our brains grew larger because fire gave us access to more energy from the same food. Think about that. The glow of a small flame could have sparked the growth of the human mind. The mastery of fire turned survival into innovation. Over time, humans learned to make fire at will. The techniques were slow to spread, but once they did, they transformed communities. The ability to strike sparks from flint or to spin a stick until friction brought forth a spark was nothing short of magic. It was the birth of technology, the first true invention that gave humanity control over nature. Fire meant movement. People could migrate into colder regions, bringing warmth with them. It changed diets, habitats, even social structures. Around the campfire, humans learned cooperation. They shared food, took turns watching the flames, and communicated more. Language itself may have deepened around those fires, where gestures turned to words and words turned to stories. Imagine the scene tens of thousands of years ago. A group huddled beneath the stars, shadows flickering across stone walls. The light reveals their faces, their hands, the outline of spears and tools. In the distance, the eyes of predators glint, but they do not dare approach. Within the circle of light, there is warmth, safety, and the first sense of home. Fire did not just protect, it united. As humans mastered fire, they began to reshape the world. They burned grasslands to drive animals into open areas for hunting. They cleared forests to create paths and settlements. Fire became a tool of transformation, one that made humans not just part of nature, but its shaper. This was the dawn of the Anthropocene, long before the term existed, the moment humans began to leave a visible mark on their environment. The control of fire also gave rise to ritual. Flames came to symbolize power, purity, and life itself. Ancient people may have seen fire as a bridge between earth and sky, a force both divine and destructive. Many myths describe gods who brought fire to humans, like Prometheus in Greek legend, punished for stealing flame from Olympus. In cultures across the world, from the Aboriginal peoples of Australia to the tribes of North America, fire was sacred, a living being that demanded respect. With fire came the first forms of craftsmanship. Hard stones could be heated and cracked to form sharper tools. Clay hardened into pottery. Eventually, much later, fire would give birth to metallurgy, the smelting of copper, bronze, and iron. But even in its earliest uses, it taught humanity one crucial idea: transformation, that things could be changed, shaped, molded, improved. And that idea became the foundation of civilization. The first communities grew where fire could sustain life, near woodlands for fuel, near rivers for clay and water. Caves became hearths, and later, hearths became homes. The concept of home is inseparable from the hearth, from fire. To have a fire was to have permanence, stability, warmth. The word focus in Latin actually means hearth. Fire was literally the center of attention, the heart of the household, the symbol of life continuing. Through fire, humans developed patience, waiting for food to cook, embers to catch, metals to melt. They learned rhythm and routine. These small acts, repeated through generations, became the pulse of society. But with this gift came danger. The same flame that gave life could destroy it. Whole forests burned, homes turned to ash, and people learned the painful truth that every power carries a price. Yet even this danger taught lessons about responsibility, balance, and respect for forces greater than oneself. In time, fire's influence reached into every aspect of human existence. It shaped migration routes, determined where villages rose, and influenced myth, medicine, and war. To control fire was to control destiny. And so, from the glowing embers of prehistory, humanity took its first steps toward becoming the architects of the world we know today. The discovery of fire marked more than just a technological milestone. It was a psychological awakening, the realization that humans could not only survive nature, but command it. It was the first rebellion against the chaos of the world, the first declaration that intelligence could triumph over instinct. From those primal flames came every invention that followed, from the forge to the factory, from the torch to the city lights that now outshine the stars. We owe our civilization to that moment when someone somewhere dared to reach out and hold fire in their hands. Even today, when we flip a switch or light a stove, we echo that ancient act. The spark inside every circuit, the heat that powers our engines, all trace their lineage to that first discovery. Fire never left us, it merely evolved. It is humbling to realize that civilization, language, art, and science all owe their birth to that flickering light in the dark. The story of fire is not just the story of survival, but the story of awakening. Humanity's first true understanding that the world could be shaped, not just endured. From the caves of early Africa to the hearths of Neolithic villages, the flame burned on, passed from hand to hand, generation to generation. It was the first shared inheritance, the first technology that united rather than divided. In its glow, humanity found its reflection, fragile yet fierce, destructive yet divine. The story of the discovery of fire is the story of us all. The moment we became more than wanderers, we became creators. As fire spread across early human communities, so too did the bonds that tied them together. The glow of a flame was no longer just a tool, it was a gathering place, a space where individuals became a group, and a group became a tribe. In its warmth, trust grew. The concept of us began to form. Those who sat together by the same fire became something more than survivors. They became family. Picture the flicker of a campfire against a night sky filled with stars. Shadows move along the cave walls, men, women, and children sitting close, faces illuminated by an orange light that pulses like a heartbeat. The elders tell stories, their voices rising and falling like the flames themselves. Children listen, wide-eyed, learning the ways of the world. The fire crackles, carrying sparks into the air, like tiny spirits ascending to the heavens. In that space, around that light, humanity found its soul. From this simple act, gathering around fire, came the birth of culture. The passing of oral traditions began here. Fire extended the hours of human activity beyond the daylight. It gave people time to think, to imagine, to remember. Myths and legends, once fleeting thoughts during the day, became woven into long narratives by the firelight. The night became not just a time of rest, but of reflection and storytelling. This was also the origin of art. In caves like Chauvet and Lascaux, prehistoric artists painted scenes of hunts and animals using torches or stone lamps. The flickering flames would have made the images seem to move, alive, almost breathing. Firelight turned stone walls into the first theaters of humanity, and art became a way to record experiences, to communicate beyond language. It's easy to forget, in our world of electricity and screens, that every human story once began with a fire. Every word, every painting, every plan was illuminated by its light. The flickering flame didn't just brighten the night, it ignited imagination. But with light came responsibility. Fire was fragile, unpredictable, and sacred. Many early groups had designated members, often women or elders, to tend the fire, ensuring it never went out. The loss of fire could mean death, hunger, or displacement. In this sense, fire became a symbol of continuity, something that must be guarded at all costs. When people moved from place to place, they carried embers in hollowed-out stones, shells, or bark. Those glowing coals were the lifeblood of the tribe, the seed of survival that linked one day to the next. It's not hard to see how fire became deeply spiritual. In many ancient cultures, fire represented the eternal, something that could die and be reborn, just as the sun disappeared each night and returned each morning. Over generations, humanity's relationship with fire grew more complex. As hunting bands settled into larger groups, as agriculture began to take shape, fire found new uses. It became essential in clearing land for crops, shaping tools, and baking the first forms of bread. The hearth transformed from an outdoor necessity to the centerpiece of the home. Archaeological findings from ancient sites like Çatalhöyük in modern-day Turkey, one of the world's earliest known cities, reveal homes built with central hearths. These were not just for warmth or cooking, they were symbols of life and identity. Every house had its own fire, linking families through a shared rhythm of light and heat. Fire was a part of everyday ritual, from preparing meals to offering prayers. As humans evolved, fire became the foundation of innovation. Around it, people began experimenting with materials, heating stones, drying wood, and discovering that certain rocks could melt or change when exposed to high temperatures. This curiosity led to one of the greatest breakthroughs in prehistory, the discovery of pottery. The idea that soft clay could be hardened by fire changed everything. It allowed humans to store water, grains, and food, essential steps towards settled living. Fire was no longer just a source of warmth or fear, it was a creative force. It gave rise to the first industries, pottery, metallurgy, and later the forging of tools and weapons. Imagine the awe of the first person who saw metal emerge from stone. The flames roared, the rocks glowed red, and then a glimmer of something new, something shining and malleable. Copper, bronze, iron. From these fiery experiments, humanity leaped forward. The Bronze Age was literally born in fire, a testament to humanity's growing mastery of the elements. But long before the smelters and forges, fire had already shaped human nature. It taught us control, patience, and foresight. You cannot rush a flame. It must be nurtured, fed just enough, shielded from wind, and respected. In that sense, fire was humanity's first teacher in the art of discipline. It also changed our bodies and our minds. Scientists believe that sitting around fires encouraged social bonding and empathy. The dim light, the warmth, the shared focus on the same flame, it soothed the nervous system, allowing for calm interaction. The human brain evolved in this glow. Our ancestors' ability to imagine, to empathize, to plan ahead, these cognitive leaps were strengthened by the comfort and safety fire provided. With safety came curiosity. Humans began to venture further, explore more dangerous territories, and adapt to climates once uninhabitable. Fire made survival possible in the frozen north, on windy plains, and in dark forests. It was both shield and sword, protection from predators, and a tool to shape the land. Over time, fire became the foundation for rituals of power and transformation. Early shamans used smoke in ceremonies, believing it carried prayers to the gods. Flames became part of burial rites, symbolizing purification and the soul's journey beyond death. The connection between fire and life and fire and afterlife echoed across every continent. In India, the sacred fire Agni was the messenger between humans and the divine, consuming offerings and carrying them to the heavens. In ancient Greece, eternal flames burned in temples, watched over by priestesses. Even in early China, fire was one of the 5 elements, a cosmic force balancing creation and destruction. Across time and space, humanity saw fire not just as a tool, but a reflection of the divine spark within us. And yet, the duality of fire was always clear. It could nurture, or it could annihilate. Entire forests burned, villages vanished, and with them came the understanding that fire must be respected, never underestimated. As civilization advanced, the control of fire became synonymous with power. The ability to harness it efficiently determined who could cook, who could forge weapons, who could build empires. Fire fueled war as much as it fueled progress. The earliest forms of warfare likely used fire as both weapon and terror. Flaming arrows, burning tar, torches hurled into enemy shelters, these acts were primal echoes of humanity's oldest fear and fascination. Even in destruction, fire held its grip on the human psyche. But beyond war and survival, fire continued to shape the imagination. Every mythology, from the Norse to the Mayan, held stories of fire's origin. It was always a sacred theft, a gift, or a curse. Prometheus stealing flame from the gods, the Cherokee legends of Grandmother Spider bringing fire to the people, the Polynesian tales of Maui snatching it from the underworld. Each story reflects a universal truth, that fire was the key to humanity's awakening, but it came with responsibility. By the time humans began to settle permanently, around 10,000 years ago, the mastery of fire had already rewritten the rules of life. Villages grew around shared hearths. Grain was baked into bread, meats roasted, and clay shaped into vessels. Firelight guided the rise of early agriculture, helping clear land, harden tools, and preserve food. The campfire became a symbol of community. The hearth became a symbol of home, and the torch became a symbol of knowledge, of light against darkness. When you look at the grand sweep of human history, every great leap, from the first forged tool to the first glowing city, can trace its ancestry to that first spark. Fire taught humanity not only how to survive, but how to dream. It is said that the discovery of fire was not just a technological evolution, but a moral one. It gave humans the ability to shape nature, and in doing so, forced them to confront the consequences of that power. To hold fire is to hold both creation and destruction in your hands. Even in the most ancient ruins, when archaeologists find the blackened remains of a hearth, they know they found the heart of a people. A place where warmth met thought, where necessity met imagination. Those ashes are not dead, they are the fingerprints of the first creators. From those embers, humanity learned that progress is not born of force, but of understanding. That to master nature, one must first listen to it. The fire did not belong to us. We learned to coexist with it. and in that balance, civilization began to form. From the first spark in the wilderness to the burning hearths of early homes, fire became the most powerful symbol of what it means to be human, fragile yet fearless, always reaching for the light in the darkness. As millennia passed, fire became the heartbeat of early civilization. Every flicker in the dark told the story of survival, progress, and identity. From scattered bands of hunter-gatherers, humanity began to settle, building the first permanent communities. And at the center of every settlement, from the plains of Africa to the valleys of Mesopotamia, there was always a hearth, a fire that never went out. The dawn of agriculture transformed how humans lived, and fire was at the core of that revolution. It cleared forests to make way for crops, burned stubble to renew the soil, and baked the first bricks used to build shelters. The hearth evolved into an oven, and the oven became a symbol of domestic life. Women tended it, families gathered around it, and it became the heart of every home. The phrase, "to keep the home fires burning," still echoes that ancient truth. Fire meant life, continuity, and belonging. As societies grew more organized, so too did their use of fire. In Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, humans learned to harden clay tablets in fire, preserving the first written records, laws, trade agreements, poetry, prayers. In Egypt, fire was used to smelt copper and gold, shaping tools, ornaments, and symbols of divine power. The glow of firelight reflected off temple walls, casting long shadows that danced like spirits of the gods. In China, early dynasties mastered the art of bronze making, using fire to create vessels and weapons that marked social rank and military might. Across the world, fire became not only a necessity but a statement of skill, of power, of advancement. The mastery of flame was the measure of a civilization's sophistication. And yet, no matter how much humanity evolved, the meaning of fire remained deeply personal. It was still warmth in the cold, light in the dark, hope in despair. Every flickering flame was a reminder that humans had once lived at the mercy of nature, and that through courage and understanding, they had learned to harness one of its fiercest forces. But fire also began to change humanity's relationship with nature itself. Where once humans had been shaped by the environment, now they began to shape it in return. Fields burned, forests cleared, rivers rerouted, all through the power of fire. This was both triumph and tragedy. The same flame that nurtured crops could destroy ecosystems. The same force that forged tools could forge weapons. Fire was the first tool of creation and destruction, a mirror of humanity's dual nature. It's remarkable to consider how deeply fire is embedded in human culture, even in language. We speak of the fire of passion, the flame of knowledge, the burning desire to achieve. Fire symbolizes intensity, transformation, and rebirth. Even today, in modern science and technology, fire remains a metaphor for enlightenment, from the torches of ancient academies to the sparks of innovation in our digital age. The early civilizations didn't just use fire, they worshipped it. In Zoroastrianism, one of the world's oldest monotheistic religions, fire is seen as the purest symbol of truth and divinity. Temples housed eternal flames that had to be kept burning at all times. To extinguish the sacred fire was to invite chaos into the world. In ancient Greece, the goddess Hestia embodied the hearth and home. Every city had a public hearth in her honor, and all fires for rituals were lit from that sacred flame. The Romans continued this tradition with the Vestal Virgins, priestesses who guarded the eternal flame of Vesta. If it ever went out, it was seen as an omen of disaster for the empire. From Persia to Greece, India to China, fire was not just a physical phenomenon, it was a moral one. It represented purity, clarity, and life's eternal rhythm. To control fire was to align oneself with the divine order of the universe. Yet, fire's role in shaping civilization went far beyond religion. It powered the earliest industries: metalworking, pottery, brickmaking. It gave rise to trade networks as communities exchanged materials and technologies. Fire's mastery turned local tribes into regional powers, and regional powers into empires. The Bronze Age, around 3300 BCE, was a turning point. With fire, humans learned to combine copper and tin to create bronze, harder and more durable than either metal alone. This innovation revolutionized agriculture, warfare, and art. Farmers plowed fields with bronze tools, soldiers wielded bronze weapons, artisans sculpted bronze idols of gods and kings. Fire had become the foundation of progress, the hidden force behind every leap forward. But each leap brought new challenges. The spread of fire-based technology meant a growing demand for wood and fuel. Entire forests were felled to feed smelters and kilns. The balance between humanity and nature began to tilt. The flame that had once been a friend to survival became a hungry force that demanded constant feeding. Still, humanity pressed on, undeterred. In Egypt, builders fired limestone to create plaster for temples. In the Indus Valley, people baked bricks for their meticulously planned cities. In the Fertile Crescent, blacksmiths forged the tools that built empires. Every great monument of the ancient world, from the pyramids to the ziggurats, carries within its stones the invisible mark of fire. Beyond its material power, fire also shaped the rhythms of society. Night was no longer a time of fear, but of gathering. Festivals and ceremonies took place around bonfires, marking the cycles of the moon, the harvest, and the seasons. Fire connected heaven and earth, the rising smoke carrying prayers upward, the glowing embers grounding people in the warmth of their community. Even the earliest calendars may have been inspired by the observation of light and heat, the rising and falling of the sun, the waxing and waning of the flame in the sky. Fire, both earthly and celestial, became humanity's first clock. As urban centers expanded, fire also became a challenge. In cities built from wood and thatch, a single spark could mean devastation. Great fires consumed ancient settlements, teaching early urban planners the need for organization and safety. Fire was both builder and destroyer, a force to be respected, controlled, but never truly contained. Perhaps one of the most remarkable shifts came when humanity began to use fire for energy in a new way. Around 5,000 years ago, people discovered that heating stones could release vapors and liquids, the first steps towards understanding chemistry. Later, in ancient China and the Middle East, alchemists used fire in their experiments to transform matter, searching for immortality and enlightenment. Though their goals were mystical, their methods laid the groundwork for modern science. Fire's symbolism endured. In almost every culture, it became a representation of the human spirit, passionate, restless, unquenchable. To this day, we light candles for remembrance, for prayer, for hope. A single flame can honor the past or illuminate the path ahead. It reminds us of our origins, fragile beings who dared to hold the stars in our hands. It's hard to imagine a world without fire. Every meal cooked, every city lit, every engine that hums owes its existence to that ancient mastery. But perhaps what makes fire truly extraordinary is not its power, but the relationship it forged between humans and the natural world. Fire taught us to collaborate, to share warmth, to work together, to protect what sustains us. It taught us that knowledge must be tended like a flame, fed with care, guarded from chaos, and passed on to those who come after. As civilizations flourished, in Mesopotamia, Egypt, the Indus Valley, and China, fire's role only deepened. It became the unseen thread weaving through the fabric of daily life. From the blacksmith's forge to the potter's kiln, from the hearth of the farmer to the temple's eternal light, fire united people across distance and time. Every great human endeavor began with that same spark: curiosity, courage, and the desire to shape the world rather than merely survive in it. The discovery of fire was the first time humanity glimpsed its own potential: to create, to destroy, to dream. And even as the centuries passed and empires rose and fell, the flame endured. It burned in torches that led armies, in lamps that guided scholars, in altars that offered prayers. Fire became a symbol of progress, the light of reason against the darkness of ignorance. The story of fire is the story of transformation. It is the tale of how light emerged from darkness, how knowledge grew from fear, and how civilization was born from the courage to touch the unknown. From that first spark in a cave to the blazing furnaces of ancient cities, fire carried humanity forward, step by step, flame by flame, into the dawn of a new age. As the centuries unfolded and the glow of fire spread from hearths to furnaces, humanity entered an era defined by craftsmanship, innovation, and wonder. The mastery of fire transformed not only how people lived, but how they imagined themselves in the universe. It was no longer just a tool, it was a symbol of divine power, human intelligence, and the eternal dance between creation and destruction. Every civilization built upon that glowing inheritance. In the valleys of the Nile, the Tigris, and the Indus, fire forged the first bricks of progress. It hardened clay tablets that preserved laws and legends. It purified metals that became tools and ornaments. Fire was not only the foundation of civilization's material success, it was the invisible architect shaping its spirit. In ancient Egypt, the sun god Ra was believed to sail his fiery chariot across the heavens each day, bringing light and life. His journey symbolized renewal, a daily victory of fire over darkness. When the sun sank below the horizon, Egyptians lit torches and lamps in imitation of the divine flame, ensuring that the world would never again return to chaos. The same reverence appeared across the ancient world. In India, fire, Agni, was the messenger between mortals and gods. Every sacred ceremony began with fire, its smoke carrying offerings to the heavens. In Persia, fire temples housed flames that burned for centuries, tended by priests as living embodiments of truth and purity. In Greece and Rome, the hearth was the spiritual center of both household and empire. Without fire, there could be no order, no connection between the human and the divine. But beyond religion, fire continued to drive humanity's progress. In the hands of metalworkers, it transformed earth into art and warfare into empire. The Bronze Age had already proven how far a flame could take humanity. Yet around 1200 BCE, another revolution burned its way into history, the Iron Age. Iron ore was far more common than tin or copper, but it required far higher temperatures to smelt. Only the most skilled metallurgists, those who truly understood the language of fire, could unlock its potential. Once they did, the world changed forever. Stronger tools meant deeper farming. Sharper weapons meant larger armies. Fire had given humans not just the means to survive, but to conquer. It was in this age that fire became inseparable from power. Kings and warriors were seen as those who commanded the flame, literally and metaphorically. Their forges glowed like suns within the dark forests. Their cities shimmered with the light of torches and lamps. The control of fire was control of destiny. And yet, in the quiet corners of these fiery empires, another kind of spark was taking shape, one not of metal, but of the mind. Philosophers began to see fire as a metaphor for knowledge. Heraclitus, the Greek thinker, believed that fire was the essence of the universe, ever-changing, consuming, and renewing. The cosmos, he wrote, was made neither by gods nor men, but was ever-living fire. To the ancient Greeks, fire represented transformation, the idea that nothing is ever truly static, that the world, like a flame, is in constant motion, burning away the old to make room for the new. This insight was profound. Humanity had not only mastered fire in the physical sense, but also learned to understand its deeper symbolism as the eternal process of change itself. Meanwhile, fire continued to shape daily life in ways both simple and grand. Blacksmiths forged plows, swords, and ornaments. Potters crafted vessels of stunning beauty. Bakers used stone ovens to perfect bread, one of the earliest forms of mass-produced food. Every city, from Athens to Babylon, thrived on a web of fires: kitchens, kilns, furnaces, lamps. each one a reminder of humanity's shared flame. But fire was still dangerous. In densely built cities, it could wipe out entire districts overnight. The Great Fire of Rome in 64 CE, for example, raged for 6 days, consuming much of the city and forever changing its architecture and laws. Afterward, the Romans imposed strict building codes, stone walls, spaced-out streets, and organized fire brigades. Out of destruction came new understanding, the need to balance mastery with respect. In other places, fire disasters inspired myth and renewal. Ancient storytellers saw great fires as punishments from the gods, purifying acts meant to cleanse the world of human pride. The idea that destruction could lead to rebirth became a universal theme. Even today, the image of the phoenix, the bird reborn from its ashes, reminds us that creation often requires letting go of what was. As the ancient world gave way to new empires, fire's influence only grew. In China, the discovery of gunpowder during the Tang Dynasty in the 9th century turned the flame into a force of unimaginable power. What began as a quest for immortality among alchemists became the foundation for war and spectacle. Rockets, fireworks, and cannons, all born of fire, reshaped the world's balance of power. Gunpowder was a new chapter in humanity's relationship with fire, no longer just a tool for survival or creation, but a weapon of dominance. Yet it also reflected the same paradox that had always defined fire, both beautiful and terrible, both a symbol of progress and a warning against hubris. At the same time, fire became the soul of innovation. Glassmaking, an art discovered in the sands of Mesopotamia and perfected by the Romans, relied entirely on flame. So did the forging of steel, the distillation of medicines, and the creation of dyes, perfumes, and ceramics. Fire gave rise to art, science, and luxury, to the idea that beauty itself could be crafted by human hands. In temples and workshops alike, the flame symbolized inspiration, the mysterious light that flickers in the human mind. Poets called it the inner fire, the passion that drives creation. Philosophers spoke of enlightenment, a word that still carries the imagery of illumination, of light pushing back the darkness of ignorance. Even the earliest forms of democracy and scholarship thrived by firelight. In Athens, citizens debated by torchlight in the agora. In Alexandria, the great library burned with lamplight long before it burned in tragedy. Knowledge, fragile, glowing, passed from hand to hand, was another kind of flame, one that would outlast empires. By the Middle Ages, fire had become the lifeblood of human progress. Blacksmiths, masons, and alchemists relied on it to craft the very infrastructure of civilization. Castles rose from furnaces. Cathedrals glowed with stained glass born from molten sand. Monks used candles to read and write through the night, preserving ancient wisdom. But it was in the late Middle Ages, as Europe emerged from centuries of darkness, that fire began to ignite a revolution unlike any before. The harnessing of fire for mechanical energy, in forges, water boilers, and later steam, would propel humanity into the modern age. Still, even before that industrial dawn, fire was shaping thought. It was the heart of alchemy, that strange bridge between magic and science. Alchemists believed that fire held the secret to transformation, that through heat and time, base metals could become gold, and mortality could become immortality. They worked in hidden laboratories, their furnaces glowing through the night, their imaginations as fierce as the flames they tended. Though they never found the Philosopher's Stone, they discovered something even greater: the principles of chemistry, the foundations of experimentation, the courage to question nature's limits. Fire once again was the teacher, reminding humanity that to transform the world, one must first dare to experiment. From ancient forges to alchemists' fires, from hearths to battlefields, fire had shaped every corner of human experience. It was present at every triumph, every downfall, every rebirth. The story of fire was and remains the story of our civilization's heartbeat, a rhythm of discovery, destruction, and renewal. And as the medieval world gave way to the Renaissance, that heartbeat grew louder. Fire would soon become not just the symbol of human spirit, but the literal engine of the modern world. The Renaissance marked a turning point in the human story, a rebirth of curiosity, art, and science. And as painters illuminated canvases with the glow of candles and thinkers questioned the structure of the universe, the flame that once danced in prehistoric caves now burned in laboratories and workshops. Fire had evolved from survival's ally to civilization's engine, from myth to mechanism. In every corner of the world, fire's influence deepened. In Europe, blacksmiths and glassmakers refined their craft with newfound precision. The glow of furnaces filled entire towns. In Asia, alchemists and engineers explored the potential of controlled combustion, creating fireworks that painted the night sky and gunpowder weapons that changed the face of warfare. In the Middle East, artisans forged steel so strong it became legendary. Damascus steel, its wavy patterns born from the tempering flames that cooled and heated the metal in rhythmic balance. Fire was no longer just a companion, it had become humanity's collaborator. Every spark seemed to mirror a spark within the mind, an idea, a dream, a question. In the glow of that collaboration, art and science intertwined. Leonardo da Vinci sketched machines powered by the expansion of heated air. Alchemists turned into chemists. Philosophers turned into inventors. The fire that once roared in caves now flickered within human imagination itself. But with knowledge came ambition, and ambition demanded power. As trade expanded and empires rose, humans sought new ways to harness fire, not just for heat or art, but for movement, for energy. It was here, in the furnaces of the early modern world, that the next revolution was born, the Industrial Age. The invention of the steam engine in the 18th century transformed fire's ancient role forever. What began as flickering embers on a cave floor now drove iron pistons and spinning gears. Steam became the pulse of progress, and coal, compressed sunlight from eons past, became fire's new fuel. The discovery that heat could create motion marked one of the most profound moments in history. Humanity had finally learned to convert fire's raw fury into mechanical precision. The world changed at a pace no one had ever imagined. Factories sprang up, their chimneys rising like modern totems, releasing clouds that carried the breath of fire into the skies. Railways stretched across continents, their locomotives thundering forward, powered by controlled flames. Ships crossed oceans without sails, guided by engines that turned water and fire into unstoppable motion. For the first time, humanity was no longer bound by the limits of nature's pace. Fire, the same force that once protected tribes from predators, was now driving empires, industries, and invention. It was as if the world had been reborn through flame, glowing with endless possibility. Yet even as fire brought progress, it demanded a price. The soot that darkened city skies, the smog that settled over towns, these were the new shadows cast by civilization's light. Humanity had mastered fire, but it had not yet learned moderation. The same element that once symbolized purity and transformation now fueled greed and pollution. Still, the progress could not be undone. The mastery of fire had evolved into the mastery of energy itself. Scientists discovered electricity, a new kind of fire, invisible yet powerful, harnessed through wires and circuits. The spark leapt from hearths and furnaces into filaments and engines. When Thomas Edison lit his first electric bulb in 1879, it was more than invention, it was evolution. The flame had found a new form, cleaner, brighter, and eternal. And yet, even as electric light replaced the ancient torch, the symbolism of fire remained. Every city that glittered with 1,000,000 bulbs still echoed that first campfire in the wilderness. The hum of machines, the glow of street lamps, the warmth of homes, all were children of that original flame. Fire had not died, it had simply evolved into new expressions. The combustion inside engines, the plasma in stars, the nuclear reactions that power suns, and, in time, human reactors. The very core of the Earth, burning silently for billions of years, still reflects the same energy that our ancestors saw in a lightning strike long ago. And through it all, fire continued to inspire awe. It burned in the pages of poetry and in the prayers of the faithful. It symbolized love, anger, passion, and rebirth. Even in the modern world, when we light candles on a birthday cake or an altar, we are continuing a tradition that stretches back nearly 1,000,000 years, the celebration of life through flame. But perhaps the most profound legacy of fire is not its light, but what it taught us about ourselves. To control fire, humans had to learn patience, observation, and respect. They had to cooperate, to share warmth, guard embers, and plan for the future. Fire turned isolation into community and instinct into intellect. It taught us that knowledge is power, and that power must be tempered by wisdom. Too little control, and the flame dies. Too much, and it consumes everything. The balance between these extremes mirrors the balance of life itself. Fire is both teacher and mirror, reflecting humanity's brightest virtues and darkest flaws. From the earliest spark in a cave to the engines that propel rockets beyond the atmosphere, fire has always symbolized the same dream: to transcend limitation. When we sent spacecraft into the heavens, their ascent is still powered by fire, a modern echo of that ancient light. The flames of our rockets are the torches of Prometheus, carried not to steal from the gods, but to join them among the stars. And yet, even as our technology reaches new heights, the elemental relationship remains unchanged. Fire still holds the power to unite and to destroy, to warm and to wound. It is both the beginning and the end, the alpha and the omega of human civilization. When archaeologists uncover the ashes of a hearth in an ancient cave, they are not just finding burnt wood. They are touching the memory of our awakening. Those ashes whisper of laughter, of fear, of hands warming in the night, of eyes watching sparks rise into the darkness, wondering what lay beyond. That same wonder still burns within us today. Every city skyline glowing against the night, every flicker of a candle in the dark, every sunrise across our planet, all remind us of that same truth. Humanity is the creature of fire. It is our oldest companion and our most dangerous rival. The discovery of fire was not merely a moment in prehistory. It was the moment humanity became conscious, the instant we realized that we could shape the world around us. It ignited not only warmth and safety, but imagination, cooperation, and purpose. Through it, we learned how to create art, to forge tools, to cook food, to tell stories, to build homes, to explore, to dream. Every age that followed, the bronze, the iron, the industrial, the digital, stands upon the shoulders of that first flame. And even now, as we harness nuclear fusion, as we capture the light of stars, and as we dream of colonizing other worlds, we are still guided by the same principle our ancestors discovered in the wilderness, that fire, in all its forms, is both gift and responsibility. In the end, the story of fire is not about the element itself, it's about us. About humanity's endless search for understanding, our courage to reach into the unknown, and our determination to create meaning from chaos. Fire did not just give us light, it gave us vision. It taught us that within every darkness, there is the potential for illumination, if only we dare to strike the spark. From the glow of embers to the blaze of cities, from the hearth to the stars, the flame endures. It is the pulse of civilization, the breath of progress, and the eternal symbol of what it means to be human. Thanks for watching The Other Side Stories. If you enjoyed this journey through history's hidden paths, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with fellow explorers. Your support helps us bring more forgotten stories to light. Until next time, keep wondering about the past that shapes our future.